Okay, so now we want to start configuring our routers. I'm going to start here with this particular router, and this is our Fremont, California router. I'm going to make a couple of changes here in my preferences. So I'm going to go to Options and Preferences. I don't really need to see the model labels, and I don't really need to see the device name labels. Maybe I might want to leave these on. But I do want to see the port labels in the logical workspace, and you'll see why in just a moment. Okay, so again, this particular device here, I'm going to click on it, and we'll go to the command line interface. And one of the first things we want to do, so you'll notice here that this says router greater than. That means we're in user mode, and there's not really much we can do in user mode other than we can type enable, and we'll go into what's called enable mode or privilege exec mode. And for most of these commands, you'll notice that I am going to abbreviate them to the point that they are unique. So EN is all you need to type for enable. The full command is enable. You'll notice that the router prompt changes here, and this indicates we're in privilege exec mode. Not much, well, there's a lot of things we can do in privilege exec mode, but what we need to do right now is to get into global configuration mode. We will do config T, which is configure terminal, configure from the terminal, and now that puts us in global configuration mode. You notice our prompt changes again. Now it's really easy for us here working on Packet Tracer to say, hey, I know I'm working on the Fremont, California router, but in reality we would be accessing these probably through a SSH application, and this device would be sitting somewhere on a rack, and we wouldn't really be able to know that we were actually in this particular router. And so if all of them say router, that's really tough for us to distinguish exactly where it's at. So one of the first things we're going to do is do the hostname command. We'll do hostname, and we'll call it the same thing as on our diagram, which is Fremont C8. And again, we'll need to look back and forth at this diagram to make sure that our topology stays consistent with the diagram. Now, the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to configure the interfaces. And you notice here that we have a serial interface. You can tell that because it's the lightning bolt. This is an Ethernet interface. You can tell because it's just a straight line. And we will need to look, if you look over here, you'll notice that this is a serial 0/0. And it does have a little clock beside of it, which means that this provides clocking. It's called a DCE end for the cable. And so when we go over here, we're going to need to, first off, we need to know what this address is. So it's 56.2. Everything in this topology is 170.32, and then dot whatever this number is, dot whatever this number is. So if we look at this one here, we're going to put int S0/0 for this particular interface. This is the one we're working on right now. And we'll put IP address, and the IP address is 170.32.56.2. And we need to put the subnet mask, and the subnet mask for everything here is 255.255.255.0. We would know that from our topology in general. Now, because it had that little clock symbol on it, we need to type clock space rate, and then whatever the clock rate of this will be. And you will get that number actually from your internet service provider based off of the bandwidth of the particular link. So we're going to pretend that this is a 64 kbps line, and we'll type in clock space rate 64,000. One of the things that's a little odd is that part of the time you'll type clock rate as one word, and part of the time you'll type it as two words, and you're not really going to know other than the fact that you start typing, you type it one way and you get an error, switch over and type it the other way. There are a number of inconsistencies that you'll see throughout the Cisco command line, and you kind of get used to the routers that you have. Make changes as necessary. Okay, so now we've got our IP address and subnet mask in. We've got a clock rate in. Anytime we make a change to an interface, it goes automatically into shutdown mode. To bring that back up, we're going to type no shutdown. This is going to be a little odd on the serial interface because on any other interface, when you do a no shut, it should bring it up. But this is a point-to-point network, and this can only be up if the other end is up. So what's going to happen is we're going to configure this end. It looks like it's going to stay down. And then after we configure the other end, it should come up. So now that's this particular interface, and we can, exit back out, but we can actually move into the next interface and do our interface configuration mode there. And that is going to be interface probably FA0/0. We need to go over here and check. So we look here, and indeed this is FA0/0. One of the frequent mistakes is that you're not paying attention to which interface you're actually configuring. You didn't connect the same interface that I did, and if you put the wrong configuration on, or if you put the configuration on the wrong interface, it isn't going to work. So you need to look at your own topology and make sure your topology matches mine exactly. If you don't have it on the same interface, you can kind of pick it up here and then come back up here and then put it into the same right interface. Okay, so let's go back here. Actually, we need to go back here and determine what the address is. So this is 64.2. So let's come in here and we'll do FA0/0, and we'll do IP add. And again, everything here is 170.32. And this one is 64.2. And we've got a 255.0 subnet mask. This is a Ethernet interface. We do not have a clock rate on that, so we'll do no shut, and the state should change to up. Now we made a couple of changes here, and so we are going to type exit to bop back a couple of times here, and we need to go ahead and save this configuration. And so to do that, we're going to do copy. The full command is copy space running dash config space startup dash config. But you can abbreviate that down to copy run start, and you can leave it as startup config as a destination file name. And now we've saved this configuration here. So every time you make changes inside of the router, you need to do the copy run start. Now if you have an older router, the command is actually write memory. But the newer routers all use copy run start. Okay, so we have this the configuration that we're going to do on the Fremont, California edge router. That's done. Now, I really should actually call this Fremont, California edge. I'm going to actually make that change right now. I'm going to get back in global configuration mode. We'll call hostname Fremont CA-edge. And the reason is that the top router here is going to be the Fremont edge, and then we will have the Fremont int will be the router below it here. So I can also do end, get all the way back out to here, and then I can do my copy run start, and now this one is saved. Okay, so I'm going to close up this router for now, and then I'm going to move down to this next router here, and we've got fast Ethernet out the top, a 0, 0, and then we've got a 0, 1 at the bottom, and then we've got a FA0 out the sides. This is actually going to be in a different interface card. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll click here once. We'll go to the CLI. We'll press return to get started. We'll move this over just a little bit so that when we look at our topology here, that we actually can see the IP addresses. Okay, so we'll do enable to get into privilege exec mode. We'll do configure terminal. We will do, let's do host name, and we'll call it Fremont CA-int for the internal router. We will do int FA0/0. Let's look back here again just to double check. So this one, FA0/0, is the top one, and the IP address on that one is 64.1. So I'm going to do IP add 170.32.64.1 255.255.255.0. This is an Ethernet interface, so we should be able now to do a no shut. And now the state is changed to up. So now we have this link from here to here is now working. And we'll go ahead and set this interface here up as well. We're not going to set these interfaces up down here just yet because these interfaces are all for a more complicated portion of this, and so we're going to pretend that they don't exist. Now, would like to verify that I can actually get up to the 64.2, and I can do that without having a routing protocol enabled. So I can actually ping 170.32.64.2, and you may not get the first ping, and that is because it's not in the router's ARP table just yet. So if you get an 80% success rate, as long as it's the first one that's missing, then everything is fine. And if you get that, and then the next time it should be in the ARP table, it should hit 100%. So that's just the way it always is, or almost always is. Okay, so now we have these two interfaces set up on this router. We've got these two interfaces set up on this router. Now from this router here, we can get up to the 64.2, but without a routing protocol, we can't actually get up to the 56.2. So if I try that one is not going to connect. So you're going to see that it is unsuccessful. So we can get to the edge here, but we actually can't go through this particular router without having either a routing protocol, a dynamic routing protocol, or we have to have an IP route statement. We'll talk about those things later. Okay, so we've got these two routers configured. I'm not going to go through and configure all of these routers for you, but I think we should go over here and configure this one here at 56.1 just so that you can see what's going on there. Now, did we do a copy run start on this one? Okay, so this one is okay for us to go ahead and close here. And we'll go over here and we will go to this particular row. This is the next one we will look at here. We're going to go return to get started. And we'll do enable and configure terminal. And we will do int. We got to double check to see what the interface is. So it's S0/0. So let's do S0/0. And the IP address of this one is going to be 170.32.56.1. It's going to have a 255.0 subnet mask. And what happens if I put the word address in here? IP add. Now this one is a serial interface, but it's not the one that has the clock rate on it. So you see this one has a little clock here. This one doesn't. And again, you kind of have to move these around so you can see which thing actually, is for which one. But this end of the cable is not going to have a clock rate. So only one end of the cable is going to have the clock rate. So we put one over on this side, so we know that we actually won't be putting one here. So this is the DTE end cable. This is the DC. So we can actually do no shut. And you notice that now that this state changes to up. And if we were over here, we'd actually see that this end of the connection also came up. Now, what we can actually do is we can run a do ping and 170.32.56.2. And you actually notice that we have connectivity across this link now. And if you've noticed, I've used the do command some. So we talked about different modes. And there are certain commands that you can run in certain modes and certain commands you can't run in other modes. And so you need to learn what those modes are. And so in configuration mode, you actually can't do a ping. So if we do ping, we just got this one, so we know this one is correct here, but 170.32.56.2 says invalid input detected. So if we put the do command in front of it, now it works. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is configure our Ethernet 1/0 here. So we'll do int. Actually, we need to do our CUNFT int E1/0 IP add 170.32.58.1. And we'll do a no shut on that. And that state is changing to up. Now, if we come over here to this server here, did go ahead and set it up. So we can do that in IP configuration. We will do IP address of 170.32.58.2, because that's what it says here on this topology here, and put in our subnet mask. And the default gateway is going to be the first router interface that we connect to. So this machine's on this network, so the first router interface it comes in contact with is the 58.1. So now that we have our machine set up here, we should be able to go into the command prompt, and we should be able to ping 170.32.58.1. Okay, so at this point we have this device configured, this one, and one interface on this one. That should be enough for you to sort of figure out the process. Now, until we have a routing protocol or we have IP route statements, we're not going to be able to move through any of these routers. So this particular machine should be able to get to 58.1, and so on this router, if we're pinging, we should be able to ping from here up to the 64.2, but not through over to the 56.2. This device should be able to ping over to the 56.1, but not be able to do 74.2, etc. Okay, so that's it for setting up the interfaces, and you can go through now and set up the interfaces for this entire topology. Again, you do have to pay really close attention to a couple of things. Number one, you got to know the IP addresses. You got to put them in correctly. And then the other thing is you have to know which interface that you're actually applying the address to, and make sure you're applying it to the correct thing. And just to remove some confusion here, what I'm going to actually do is go back, and we talked about this already, but go to options and preferences. I'm actually going to do the device. I don't think those are helping us any, so go ahead and close that. So I did want to say one more thing here about saving your configurations, and I'm going to go ahead and open this one back up on the command line, and I'm going to go back into enable, and I'm going to do show run here. So this is the running configuration. You can hit the space bar to go down and see all of the configuration. You can actually go up and scroll back up here to where you started your show run. You can come down to where it says current configuration. You can start right there, and you can highlight all of this information here down to end. We can right click and we can copy that, and then let's go to, we can just do a new notepad file, text document, and we'll call this Fremont CA Edge. We can leave it .txt. You can double click on this, and then we can Control V to paste it down in here. And so if I ask to see your notepad configuration, this is what I'm looking for. And what we really want to do is kind of go in and take out actually the stuff. We could have started with hostname there. Take out the stuff that is not part of the configuration that you typed in. So I don't need to see that because that wasn't something you typed in. And we will come down and take out. Now there are some interface stuff that you did not type in. Leave the interface stuff in there. Leave these line con 0. And so now we have a clean notepad file, and periodically I'm going to want to see this, and particularly if you have any issues with the configuration, I'm going to want you to send me your configuration so I can look at those. Okay, that's all for now. We'll see you next time. And so now it's just configuring all the rest of these.